Anna and David had been together for over 25 years. Once, their days were filled with passion and laughter, long walks in the park, spontaneous weekend getaways, and late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. They used to dance in the kitchen while cooking dinner, whispering sweet nothings to each other as if the world outside didn't exist. But over time, life happened. Careers took priority, responsibilities piled up, and the weight of everyday obligations slowly dulled the spark that once burned so brightly between them. What started as small, unnoticed changes eventually became an undeniable distance. The spontaneous laughter was replaced by predictable routines. Their conversations, once vibrant and full of dreams, had become practical exchanges about bills, schedules, and grocery lists. The intimacy they once cherished had faded into hurried goodnight kisses and the quiet turning of pages before falling asleep. Every day felt like a monotonous cycle: waking up, going to work, coming home, having dinner, watching TV, and going to bed. It wasn't that they didn't love each other. Deep down, they knew they did, but love alone wasn't enough to keep them connected. There was an invisible wall between them, built brick by brick over the years, and neither knew how to tear it down. Don't turn away just yet. The most seductive moments are still ahead. Let us take you on an intimate journey that will stir your heart, reignite forgotten passions, and reveal the true depth of love and connection. One evening, while cleaning the kitchen after yet another routine dinner, Anna glanced at David. He stood at the sink, washing dishes mechanically, his face distant, lost in thought. She suddenly felt an ache in her chest, a longing for the man she had fallen in love with, the one who used to surprise her with handwritten notes and slow dances in the living room. Summoning her courage, she set down the dish towel and softly asked, "Do you feel like we've changed?" David paused, his hands still submerged in the soapy water. He didn't need to ask what she meant. The weight of unspoken words, of years of quiet drifting, settled between them. Finally, he nodded. "I do, but I don't know what to do about it." His voice was quiet, almost uncertain, as if admitting it out loud made the problem feel even more real. Anna searched his face, looking for traces of the man who once held her close and promised forever. He was still there, she knew it, but they had both let time and routine bury the best parts of their love. And in that moment, she decided she wouldn't let them become strangers, not without a fight. Instead of letting the conversation fade into silence, Anna decided to try something new. She stepped closer, placed her hand on David's, and said, "Let's spend one evening just talking, like we used to. No phones, no TV, just them." At first, it felt unfamiliar, almost awkward. They had grown so used to sharing the same space without truly engaging that the idea of deep conversation seemed foreign. But as they settled onto the couch, something shifted. The flickering candlelight softened their surroundings, and for the first time in years, they weren't just partners managing a household. They were two souls rediscovering each other. Anna started with a simple question. "What's one thing you've always wanted to do but never did?" David hesitated, then chuckled. "I always thought about taking ballroom dancing lessons. I just never brought it up because I figured you wouldn't be interested." Anna's eyes widened with surprise. "Dancing? I had no idea." She reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. "Why didn't you tell me?" he sighed. "Life got in the way. And I guess, over time, I stopped thinking my dreams mattered." A lump formed in Anna's throat. Had they really gone so long without sharing their desires, their dreams? She squeezed his hand and whispered, "Your dreams matter to me." And just like that, the walls between them began to crumble. They spent hours reminiscing about their younger days, the spontaneous road trips, the nights they spent talking until sunrise, the way they used to make each other feel special in the smallest ways. Then they shared their hopes for the future, not as individuals, but as a couple. As the night deepened, David reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind Anna's ear. "I miss this," he murmured. "I miss us." Anna smiled, her heart swelling with warmth. "We're still here," she said, "and we can find our way back." That night, for the first time in years, they didn't fall asleep as two people merely sharing a bed. They held each other, feeling the gentle rise and fall of their breathing, knowing that something had shifted. They had taken the first step toward rediscovering the love they thought had faded. From that day on, Anna and David began to change their habits. They realized that intimacy wasn't just about the moments in the bedroom. It was built in the quiet gestures, the meaningful glances, and the tender touches throughout the day. Instead of brushing past each other in the kitchen, David would place a gentle hand on the small of Anna's back. She, in turn, started leaving little notes for him, simple reminders of how much she appreciated him. Before every intimate evening, they took time to connect, not just physically, but emotionally. Long hugs, slow, lingering kisses, whispered words of affection. They learned that true intimacy didn't have to be grand or extravagant. It was in the way David would wrap his arms around Anna from behind as she washed the dishes, or the way she would rest her head on his shoulder while they watched the sunset. These moments of connection made their time together feel less routine and more intentional. But beyond these small acts, they also explored new ways to rekindle their passion. One evening, David tried something different. He wrapped his arms around Anna from behind, letting her lean into him. The warmth of his embrace, the steady rhythm of his breathing, it all made her feel safe, cherished. She sighed contentedly, closing her eyes. "I feel like I'm falling in love all over again," she whispered. And perhaps most importantly, they began talking openly about their desires. One evening, Anna nervously admitted, "I've always wondered what it would be like to try something a little different, to explore fantasies we've never talked about." David raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Like what?" She bit her lip, feeling a mix of excitement and vulnerability. "I don't know. Maybe role-playing, or setting up a romantic scene, or just talking about what turns us on." David smiled, reaching for her hand. "I love that idea." In that moment, they both realized something profound. Desire doesn't fade with time unless you let it. Passion isn't lost, it's rediscovered. They found that certain positions not only deepened their physical connection, but also strengthened their emotional bond. It was no longer just about passion. It was about rediscovering the intimacy that had faded over the years, about making each other feel seen, desired, and cherished. The spooning position quickly became one of their favorites. As David lay behind Anna, his arms wrapped around her waist, she felt an overwhelming sense of safety and closeness. The warmth of his body pressed against hers, his steady breathing against the nape of her neck. It was a silent reassurance that he was there, fully present, holding her not just physically, but emotionally. At times, their spooning was simply about comfort, lying intertwined under the soft glow of their bedside lamp, talking in hushed tones about their day, their dreams, and their thoughts. Other times, it was about something deeper, a slow, sensual exploration of each other's bodies. There was no rush, no urgency, just a quiet, deliberate savoring of every touch, every sigh, every reaction, For Anna, being held this way reignited something within her, a long-lost feeling of being cherished, of knowing she was desired for more than just routine affection. For David, it was the intimacy he had been missing, the connection beyond words that reminded him why he had fallen in love with her all those years ago. One evening, as they explored new ways to connect, Anna hesitantly suggested trying reverse cowgirl. She had read about how it allowed a woman to take control, to set the rhythm, to feel empowered in her own body. At first, she was nervous. Would it feel awkward? Would she know what to do? But as she moved, she felt something unexpected. Confidence. She was in control, guiding their movements, deciding the pace. She wasn't just following the motions. She was leading. And in that moment, she felt powerful, beautiful, and completely in tune with her own pleasure. David, watching her, was mesmerized. He could see the newfound confidence in her eyes, the way she carried herself with a sense of self-assurance that was intoxicating. It wasn't just about the physical sensation. It was about witnessing her rediscover her own sensuality. And that, in turn, made his desire for her even stronger. Afterward, as she lay beside him, catching her breath, David brushed a strand of hair from her face and whispered, "I love seeing you like that. You're incredible." Anna smiled, feeling not just desired, but truly admired. As they continued to rekindle their intimacy, they realized something profound. Passion wasn't about speed or urgency. It was about presence. Instead of rushing through encounters, they focused on being completely in the moment. They experimented with longer foreplay, learning to appreciate the buildup, the teasing, the way a lingering touch could send shivers down their spines. They paid attention to each other's cues, learning the small gasps, the slight shifts in movement, the subtle signals of pleasure that had once gone unnoticed. They allowed laughter and playfulness to return to their intimacy. A ticklish kiss on the neck, a playful whisper in the ear, these small, light-hearted moments brought back the ease and comfort they had once shared. David learned how much Anna responded to gentle caresses down her spine, the way it sent waves of pleasure through her. Anna, in turn, discovered how much David enjoyed soft kisses along his jawline, how it made him shudder ever so slightly. These were things they had never taken the time to truly notice before. It wasn't just about physical pleasure. It was about being fully attuned to each other, about creating an experience that was more than just an act, but a meaningful exchange of love and connection. And as they lay in each other's arms afterward, fingers intertwined, they both knew this was only the beginning of their rediscovery. As days turned into weeks, Anna's newfound confidence began to extend beyond the bedroom. She carried herself differently, her posture straighter, her laughter more frequent, her touch more intentional. She started dressing in ways that made her feel beautiful, not for anyone else, but for herself. David took notice. It wasn't just the way she moved, but the way she looked at him. Playful, daring, alive. He found himself drawn to her in a way that felt fresh yet familiar, as if he were falling in love with her all over again. One evening, while preparing dinner together, he wrapped his arms around her waist from behind, pressing a slow kiss to her shoulder. "You've changed," he murmured, his voice filled with admiration. Anna smirked, setting the knife down and turning to face him. "Maybe I've just remembered who I used to be." That night, she took the lead once again, but this time it wasn't just about control, it was about celebration. She embraced every moment, every sensation, with a confidence she had never felt before. David followed her lead, mesmerized, completely enraptured by this version of his wife, who had been there all along but was now shining brighter than ever. Afterward, as they lay tangled in each other's arms, David whispered, "You're more beautiful now than the day I met you." Anna smiled, tracing lazy patterns on his chest. "Maybe it's because I finally believe it." As the seasons changed, so did Anna and David's understanding of love and intimacy. They had learned that passion wasn't something that naturally endured. It had to be nurtured, tended to like a fire that needed fuel to keep burning. It wasn't always grand gestures or extravagant plans. Sometimes it was the way David instinctively reached for Anna's hand while they watched a movie, or how Anna left small notes for him on the bathroom mirror, reminding him that he was still the man she adored. One afternoon, they took a walk through the park where they had their first date. The leaves were beginning to turn golden, the air crisp with the promise of autumn. Anna paused, looking at David with a softness in her gaze. "You know," she said, squeezing his hand, "I think I love you even more now than I did back then." David chuckled. "Even with the wrinkles and gray hair?" She leaned in, pressing a kiss to his cheek. "Especially with them. Every line, every year, we've earned them together." They had learned that love after 50 wasn't about trying to reclaim what once was. It was about embracing what could be, growing together, rediscovering each other, and finding new ways to keep the fire alive. Because love never truly fades, it only waits for us to choose it again and again. And as Anna and David walked hand in hand into the setting sun, they knew that their best years were still ahead of them.